A lot of strategies that apply to limit don't apply to no limit. There are a lot of traps, a lot of tricks that you will fall into when you move from or to no limit. In this series of shows, I will focus on the way limit and no limit hold'em relate. To be more concrete, I will discuss some key aspects of limit and no limit hold'em, the things people should take into account when making a transfer to either one of them. Today, I will begin by analyzing things for people who, like me, come from a limit hold'em background and who now want to make a successful transition into no limits. In the fourth and the last show, I will analyze things for people who walk the opposite path, who started out with no limit hold'em and now want to move into limit. The focus in these shows will be on cash game strategies. When people talk about position, they almost always talk in terms of position relative to the button. But in big bet play, there's one aspect that may be even more important than that. It is your position on the pre-flop raiser. I will give two examples that clearly show how this factor alone can make some rather weak hands profitable and some fairly decent hands unprofitable. The keys are, of course, as so often in big bet play, implied odds and reverse implied odds. Example number 1. Your hand. 9 of clubs, 8 of clubs, on the button. The situation. 1 under the gun limper for $20. Now the cutoff makes it $70 to go. Everyone is playing a $900 stack. What do you do? The play. Well, you are on the button. What is conceived to be the best possible position. Yes, that's true. You have a decent no-limit hold'em hand. And yes, you may even have a good snap-off hand against the big cards that the raiser probably holds. Meaning that your cards are probably very live. And there's also quite a bit of money left to be bet. And, taking into account your position, your implied odds seem to be quite good, right? Wrong. This is one of the clearest faults you will ever see in no limit. While your position seems to be good, it is actually quite horrible. In the first place, your call doesn't close the betting. If either one of the blinds wakes up with a real hand, or if the initial limper decides to come over the top, you will have wasted almost 8% of your stack without even getting to see a flop. What's more, even if the normal thing happens, both blinds folding and the initial limper calling the raise, then your position is still not as good as it seems. Knowing that in three-handed no-limit pots, pre-flop raisers will almost without exception bet the flop, whether they have hit or not, the limper will almost certainly check to the raiser on the flop, to let him do the betting. Now this means that the limper's check on the flop will give you no information whatsoever. Because he may well be bagging a good hand, he now has you caught in the middle. You will be sandwiched between a bettor who may or may not have a good hand and a third player who may very well be lying in the bushes with a monster. This means that the pre-flop raiser is now betting through you. And because you cannot be sure about the price you are getting on a call on a flop, and the relative strength of your hand in this three-way situation, you are in an extremely bad spot. The way to avoid this predicament is by simply folding your decent hand before the flop, rather than call and get yourself into a whole lot of trouble. Example number 2. Your hand. The same 9-8. This time unsuited. 9 of spades, 8 of clubs. This time you are in the $20 big blind. The situation. The under the gun player makes it $70 to go. The cutoff calls, and it's up to you. As before, everyone is playing a $900 stack. What do you do? The play. Well, it seems you are in even worse shape than in the previous situation. After all, being first to speak on all streets, you have the worst possible position. Also, your hand is not even suited now. And the raise comes from under the gun, and this is usually a sign of considerable strength. So, if the first situation is a clear fault, then this will definitely be one. Right? Wrong. Even though your position seems to be bad, it is actually quite good. You are now the one who is in a good position to simply check every flop, to let the pre-flop raiser do the betting for you, and thereby putting the cutoff in the middle. You are now in an excellent position to minimize your losses when the flop is bad, or the action behind you suggests that bigger hands are out there, and also to maximize your wins for the times that the flop has actually been good to you. With $830 left, if you check, the pre-flop raiser will probably bet something in the range of $200. Now, if he gets check raised by you, knowing that the total bet is just $830, $630 more, he may very well feel committed, even with unimproved overcards. And if you are really strong, you may actually make a smaller raise to give him a discount if you think that he is the type of player to fall for this trap. Also note that with the $20 big blind in already, you will have to call just $50 more, not $70 more like in the first example. Now, calling $50 or $70 when you have a $900 stack is a substantial difference, even when this difference seems to be small. Coupled with the fact that, in contrast to the previous example, your call will actually close the betting here, this means that the actual situation is like this. In these two examples, I would recommend you fold the better hand in seemingly excellent position, while calling with the worse hand in seemingly bad position. A strange situation, but undoubtedly correct, and most of all because of this one simple factor: your position relative to the raiser.